Hi Lisa, can you please comment on what it was like for you when you became enlightened, realized your enlightenment? What were the circumstances? What did it feel like? Thanks. Megan. It felt like I was falling out of my eyes. Like my I am and my looking, my essence, it felt like it was falling out of my eyes. Like it just grew so big. I felt like I was in here, and then it just went poof into everything. It felt like an expansion. And it came from me being incredibly brave and not following everything I've been told I should follow, but following my passion, which was non-duality at the time. And prior to that was I was a theatre playwright, and everyone had told me these were things I couldn't do. I was dyslexic. So it came from really being very brave for many years, the whole of my 20s, pushing myself to my limits, constantly pushing and pushing and pushing to my edges, the edges of what defined me. It was incredibly scary. I never knew where I was going. I didn't know what the end point would be. And my personality is still like that. I still do it in the personality form. I'm still pushing Lisa, the character, to expand and to grow and to learn new things. But this shift is always there. Like that shift of being Lisa to not being Lisa. Or it's not that it's always there. That's a really hard point to talk about. It's like, I don't like saying that it's always there. That I don't. There was just a profound shift, and then after that, yeah, this all becomes indescribable. Like the person, the mind, wants you to be able to describe it in a distinct way and say it was always there, or it always shifted, or it was always like this. But then after that thing happened, I can't get all that into words. Let me try my best. I can't sum up that. But this shift happened, it felt like a big expansion. And then after that I'm left wordless. And actually trying to put that into words just doesn't feel right in my body when I try to say it. It's always like this or always like that. Because my experience now is this vast whole and this expansion. So this vast whole and then this expansion, and then in that there's this character arising and disappearing, this Lisa character that comes and goes. And this Lisa character is what you can talk about. So that vast hole, that full stopness, you can't talk about. And that vast hole and that expansion, I can't say from that position it's always here, because it doesn't exist in time. The Lisa exists in time. So I can't express that part to you, because that part is nothing's happening. That part is non-expressible. And I know this seems so hard to comprehend. Until you've had these big awakenings, you can't know what I'm talking about. But if you have, then you'll appreciate me trying to get this into words. And then the Lisa character comes and goes and says that it's always there or not always there, and that's irrelevant, because that's in the Lisa character. And the Lisa character tries to look in time for if it's been there the whole time, and she shouldn't even be looking in that world, because it doesn't belong to her. In that world, it's all about hunting and gathering and survival. Like, Lisa is interested in survival, and interested in being Lisa, and interested in fulfilling Lisa's pleasures and pains. She can't talk about whether she always experiences it, because that's not that world. So in the memory, in the Lisa world, there cannot be a looking to see in that Lisa world if there's always enlightenment, or if there's always this or always that. So you hear some teachers say, yes, it's always like this now, or some that won't answer it, because you can't. You're mixing up two different worlds. Once that world's been expressed, and that expansion's happening, then it can't always be here, because, and it can't live in that world of what we say is always being here, or I've experienced that for the last 7 years, or Lisa is always awake, because it's not the same worlds. Lisa isn't enlightened, and so if you ask Lisa in her world, she can't express that sort of thing to you. She can say, well, it seems like it's here all the time, but that's an inaccuracy, and that feels like a lie to her, because she can't say it in her world. And she wouldn't be able to tell if it is or isn't, or if or the identity is coming or not coming, because she can't do that. So, like, I had a friend who was really into Tony Parsons, and in Tony Parsons' world, or in the Neo-Advaita, not just Tony Parsons, but in this more Neo-Advaita, it's like the self is gone, and that self doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, maybe they could be above my realization, that's what they would say, but to me that doesn't make sense. From here, that doesn't make sense, to claim that it is here or isn't here. Neither seems like it can be claimed. There is this clear seeing, but the clear seeing is clear seeing and doesn't move in time. That clear seeing it feels wrong on the human level to say it's always in my experience. So to say it is or isn't kind of feel very similar in the human world. I tried both on after the awakening. Like, it is always in my experience, it isn't always in my experience, and neither felt right, neither fitted. To the mind, that sounds bad, that sounds like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, but maybe the fact that I can't describe it is the most profound thing. The fact that I'm unwilling to sit in either world is maybe really profound. Because if you think about it, you can't think about it. But maybe the humility of that is really a beautiful thing. When I first started talking about this and first started teaching, I had people that I knew that were teachers or students that came, and they put so much pressure on me to define it. And first maybe my character fell into those pit holes of trying to define it. And then she became more and more wise on the human level. That this character, the character is always evolving on the human level. But unless, at this point, when I'm speaking like this, unless you've had these energetic awakenings, you'll be disappointed by my answer, because your mind will wanting to define it in this or that. When you've had these energetic awakenings, then you begin to see that it's not definable in that, and you begin to understand why I begin to get so unclear when it gets down to these details, because you can't be. And that you're kind of living in these two worlds. It's like this boundless freedom, and that's who you are, and then there's this character which is being experienced through, and it's like this character is speaking, but from here it doesn't feel like this character is speaking. There is just speaking happening, but to you it all seems like a character. And then if this body has to think about, oh, I'm going on holiday next week, then suddenly an image of Lisa appears going on holiday next week, and then the character's here. And then it's like, then I have to imagine if I've been this way for 7 years, or the experience that I've had for 7 years, and then you imagine the character and what this character's had for 7 years, and it's impossible. Enlightenment is so much bigger than that, the character's world, and what we think in this and that. It's this pure seeing right now. It's this pure experiencing right now. Enlightenment isn't about defining yourself as enlightened or not enlightened, as this or that. That's all in the human world for our practicalities of speaking. But that doesn't define this instant, that doesn't define this boundless energy that is here. Wow, it's so beautiful. In your answer about enlightenment, it sounds like you were working hard for many years before it happened, pushing yourself to limits. This is not the first time I hear enlightenment is not for lazy ones. Although I practice calmness and being cautious and present, maybe I will become more active naturally when the time comes. But now I feel like being lazy more and more, because I think I have many false motives. So I convince myself that it's better to just be calm and happy than to engage in activities chasing false motives. Your question feels heavy, or your words feel heavy. So maybe just recognize what's happening in you right now. Like, you can ask yourself the question, what do you want from me? Like, honestly, what do you want from expressing that? So just see. So your mind has this surface level, well, I want an answer to this, I want to know this or that. But just see if you can follow it back and back and back and back. Eventually, if you keep following it back, you'll get to no place, but you'll get to really this very subtlety of expressing, and you'll notice at some point what you want. Ultimately what you want is freedom, but then on the human level you're going to have a want as well, what the human wants. Maybe you won't like me for saying this, because maybe what you want from me is to be accepted as somebody with a certain outlook or a certain way of saying something, And then if I don't accept that, then you feel like you're not liked, and then you will reject me. So just notice what's going on in your body. Notice those dynamics. Feel it. Don't let the mind convince you of anything. Just be fresh to every moment. Thank you though for engaging. It's really beautiful and courageous. Many people are too afraid to even engage. Hi Lisa, I don't really get the distinction between waking up and working on conditioning. Working on conditioning is something that's happening in the dream. Waking up is seeing that you aren't anything in the dream. Often though, working on the conditioning needs to happen prior to that expansion, because otherwise the energy is too condensed and too stuck in the person, and the person is just obsessed with itself. So there needs to be a relaxing of that and a calming down, evening out of that, and then that energy can see that energy come forward, or swaps, that you aren't the person, you are this boundless freedom. Conditioning is how the body is set up by genes and the rules of society and family, etc. And you and other speakers say that working on conditioning will not bring you enlightenment, but believing in your thoughts and taking your stories seriously and believing that you show the truth, isn't that conditioning as well? Yeah, but I just answered your question. Notice that also the mind stays in confusion, because that's a conditioned thing as well. But just keep listening to my talk and it will become more and more clear if you're confused. Or if your conditioning is that you want to stay in confusion, then you'll keep being confused by my talks. Don't worry, everybody. You can't escape who you truly are, because who you truly are is everything. So even though all these people have these questions and feel stuck and feel all these things, ultimately you can't go anywhere, you can't leave home, you can't lose anything, because the experiencer is who you truly are, and that experiencer isn't a limitation. The experiencer is this boundless freedom. Hey Mark, our sweet picture with your two cats. Hi Lisa, how are you today? Jose. I'm good, thank you. You look like it's hot there. Actually, it's not so hot. It's not as hot as it has been. But prior to doing this talk, I went out for a walk with Khaleesi, so I got quite steamy. Oh, and I was also so lucky to meet Ramesh. Lovely. What you are describing happened, and it stayed for quite a number of years, yet it faded through a history of demanding life. The one thing I know is that the person seeking will never get it. Of course, this one person feels panicked, as it also laughs at the mentioning of it. Yeah. Until you've had these energetic awakenings, you can't understand when I begin to talk about that sort of stuff, because life is this and that. And then when you have the energetic awakening, you're like, I really can't know anything. You really begin to understand why it's so incredibly hard for me to put it into words. But one thing it requires, or one thing that seems to happen in the body-mind, in the character and the expression, is trying its best to be as genuine as it can, even though it's hard. Because sometimes you're not aware of things, or sometimes it's just so impossible to say it. It doesn't matter to me if Neo-Advaitas are above or whatever. From here, my compass, is that it resonates. That's exactly it. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong or who's above or who's got more. It's what resonates. And who knows, They could be above or they could be below, or maybe none of that matters. And whatever is what happens to Lisa and Bali, your silence is very real and powerful energy, huge, fills the entire room and makes me enter in full silence and love. That's beautiful, and that's the most important part. That really is. So that's the important part. Because that's when you stop having belief in someone and belief in a guru, is that you begin to hear your own silence. Because if you believe in a guru, or if you believe in a teaching, you'll always be let down by it because it's something moving in time. That silence is timeless, and that silence doesn't belong to me or you, it is. Thanks, Yun.